Alright, let's look today at section 3.5 over writing ratios and proportions. The first thing we obviously need to do is check out that vocabulary. So take a moment and read it through. Let's start with that word ratio. And then when we see that word ratio, the use of division, often in fraction form, to compare two quantities. All three versions of this notation all say A compared to B. A to B, A to B, A to B. All of them are read the same. Ratios, I want you to remember, are just simply fractional comparisons. Fractional comparisons. Compare, there's that word compare and the word fraction. Now, the second piece is what happens when you take two fractions and you set them equal to one another, or saying that two ratios are equivalent. We call that a proportion. The key part to a proportion is that equal sign in between two ratios. So, start with the ratio portion here. The example one is about cell phone use from back in the day. A person makes 6 long-distance calls and 15 local calls in 1 month. Find the ratio of long-distance calls to local calls. So, top is going to be how many long-distance and bottom is how many local. So we say 6 over 15, which is never enough. With a ratio, you always have to simplify. So 6 and 15 are both divisible by 3. Oops. I want 3 there. They're divisible by 3. I would like 2 over 5. Better erase that out again. There we go. Alright, so we've got 2 over 5. Now, long distance calls compared to all the calls that they made. So we put how many long distance calls did they make? 6. And how many calls total? Well, that's going to be the 6 long distance plus the 15 local. So this fraction, this ratio, is really 6 compared to 21. But we can never leave it like that. We have to simplify. Both divisible by 3 again, so we get 2 out of 7. 2 to 7 is my simplified ratio. All right, here's an example number 2. I would like you to go through and give it a try. Pause the video and try it. Hopefully your work looks something like this. Notice that I used my words to keep myself organized. I put number Sean sold over the number Myra sold, and I put the number Myra sold over the total number sold. So just if you need it, because some of these problems are going to get a little bit confusing, and if you make good habits now, they stay easy. Let's go to the next page. Now, in example 3, we're going to solve the proportion. I want you to notice that when we solve proportions, we're going to do it several different ways. But when we see a nice, easy problem with a variable, with one single variable and 3 other numbers, when we see this happen, then the easiest way to do this problem is using method 1. Look at the side the variable's on. Think about what has happened to the variable. There are 2 possible methods. The variable's on the left, and y was divided by 15. So in order, was divided by 15. So we need to solve by multiplying by 15. I'm going to leave method 2 blank for now. So method 1, it was divide. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply the left side of the equation by 15. And I'm going to multiply the right side of the equation by 15. On the left, 15, remember that's really 15 over 1. So 15 over 15 gives me a 1. And that's now 1y, or just y, equals 15 over 5 gives me 3 over 1. And 3 times 3 is 9. And 1 times 1 is 1. So y is equal to 9 is my answer. That's my favorite method. Now the second method is going to appeal to the logic-based side of your brain. And now I want to leave method 2 for now for another day. Would you please give, or another video really, not another day, another video. So would you please give this second problem a try? Solve for C. Hopefully you multiply both sides by 28 and you simplified your fraction. Now, I guess, like I said before, I'm going to come back to method 2. I'm just not quite ready for it in this video. I do want to talk about setting up a proportion. There are different ways to set up a proportion. Consider the following problem. A recipe for tomato salsa calls for 30 tomatoes to make 12 pints of salsa. How many tomatoes are needed to make 4 pints of salsa? There are two very, very good ways to set this up. But the key piece to setting up your problem is making sure that you use your words to keep you organized. The smaller recipe compared to a normal recipe. Or maybe you want to set up yours as tomatoes over pints of salsa. Regardless of how you set it up, you need to make sure that you keep your two ratios the same. So whether you do small over normal or tomatoes over pints, your two ratios need to compare the same items. You couldn't compare tomatoes to pints in one ratio and pints to tomatoes in another. So be very, very careful, right? That's this avoid errors note here from your textbook. So be cautious. There are different ways to do it as long as you line up the words. I think I'm going to write that down. So I wrote down, line up the two ratios correctly by using your words to guide you. Let's practice. An empty swimming pool is being filled with water. After 5 minutes, the pool has 400 gallons of water. If the pool has a volume of 11,200 gallons, how long does it take to fill the empty pool? So this now and later, when we talk about time, might be better replaced with the first measurement and the second measurement. After 5 minutes, we have 400 gallons. And after, I don't know how long, oh, there's your variable, I have 11,200 gallons. So once I've organized my information, now I can set up our proportion, making sure to set up each ratio consistently, right? That's that use the words part. So if I do time over gallons, I would have 5 compared to 400 is equal to, I would love to know how long it's going to take, over 11,200 gallons. Once I have my proportion, then I can solve it. Notice that we have just one single x so that we can do this problem the quick and easy way. So that's my write a proportion step. Now for my solve step. Multiply by 11,200 over 1. Multiply by 11,200 over 1. 1 here, so that's x equals and my 100s 112 divided by 4. So we get 2, that's 8, 32, so 28 is my x value. Remember to tell me what that means, right? It asks you a question, how long does it take to fill the empty pool? We need to know what units we were measuring. We need to know all sorts of good things. So it's going to take 28 minutes to fill the pool. Would you please give example 4 a try? Alright, so none of your cheating. I really want to see you do example 4, and I want to see you do this first problem. So pause it now and give them a try. Pause it. Alright, so hopefully you did that, and hopefully your work for example 4 gave you an example, or give you an answer of b equal to 35, and when you did this other problem, which is coincidentally not numbered, that you ended up with w equal to 4. I want to point out all this simplifying that I had to do. I multiplied both sides by 56, and then I started simplifying. If at some point you decided to multiply and not simplify again, and you had a middle step in here, or you had a different number other than 16, that is just fine. Just be cautious and make sure that you simplify your fraction all the way down before you get to your answer. Now I want to make sure that we do this next problem. I want to make sure we do this one together after I let my dog in. Alright, okay, so let's look at this problem. The first thing I want to remind you is that you need to put your parentheses in here because that's a quantity. But we're still going to undo that division first. We're going to multiply both sides by 8. So 8 over 8 becomes a 1. Multiply by 8 over 1. And I'm going to show you what I could have done in this problem on the left. I could have done 8 times 7 is 56 over 112. I could have multiplied across equals c minus 3. Then simplified this fraction. 56 over 112 is the same as saying 1/2 is equal to c minus 3. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Add 3. And that gives me c plus 0 is c. And on the left, 3 plus 1/2 is 3 1/2. And this would be a spot where a mixed number is probably easier to write than going to an improper fraction. But improper fraction would be 7 over 2. So I'll put that in there for you too. 7 over 2. You have to have a fraction answer because I gave you fractions in the question. Try this next problem. And hopefully you finished that problem and your work should look something close to mine. I'm really looking for, did you multiply by 60 and did you subtract 6? Because those are the two steps that need to get done. Your answer is n equal to 4. And I believe that puts us to section 3.6. Yep, it does. See you in the next video.